Ever felt so completely trapped by life's difficulties that you simply stopped trying to escape altogether? This isn't just basic laziness or a random lack of willpower. It is a deeply rooted psychological state known as learned helplessness. It is a profound mental phenomenon where your brain convinces you that you are entirely powerless, even when the doors to freedom are wide open. Comes from. We have to travel back to the late 1960s at the University of Pennsylvania. A psychologist named Martin Seligman was conducting a series of behavior experiments that would completely change our understanding of human psychology. He discovered that when control is taken away, behavior shifts dramatically. In the initial phase of the famous experiment, animals were placed in a situation where they received mild, harmless, but highly uncomfortable electric shocks. They tried everything they could to turn the dial and stop the discomfort, but the device was completely rigged to ignore their actions. No matter what they did, the shock kept coming, rendering their efforts entirely useless. After realizing that absolutely nothing they did changed their situation, a tragic shift occurred. The subjects completely stopped trying, gave up entirely, and lay down passively on the floor to accept their fate. They had systematically learned a dark lesson, that they were completely helpless and their environment was entirely out of their control. But the truly shocking discovery came during the second phase of Seligman's experiment. The subjects were moved into a new box where escaping the shock was incredibly easy. All they had to do was step over a tiny, low barrier to safety. Yet, instead of running away or hitting the button, they simply sat there and whimpered, suffering needlessly. They had the physical ability to escape. The path was completely clear, and yet their minds kept them totally paralyzed inside an invisible cage. Their past trauma had completely overwritten their natural survival instincts. They truly believed that pain was unavoidable, so they didn't even bother to look at the map for an exit. This groundbreaking research quickly bridged the gap to human behavior, revealing why so many people get stuck in toxic cycles. When humans experience repeated failures, bad relationships, or systemic hardships, our internal software begins to glitch. We look at our laptops or jobs and feel an overwhelming sense that nothing we do will ever matter. Think about someone who constantly studies for an incredibly difficult exam, but fails every single time. Eventually, they look at the massive wall of information and decide to stop studying entirely, assuming failure is an inevitable genetic trait. They have successfully taught their brain to accept defeat before the test even starts. This psychological loop is the primary structural foundation of clinical depression and chronic passivity. We hold the absolute key to our own freedom right in our laps, yet we refuse to insert it into the lock because we are convinced it won't turn. It is a state of survival where the mind chooses numbness over continuous, painful rejection. But this story doesn't end in darkness, because Seligman later discovered something entirely revolutionary. If helplessness can be learned, then control can be learned too. Scientists began a deep investigation into what they termed learned optimism. They found that the brain possesses an incredible, elastic ability to completely rewrite its own conditioning. The first major step to breaking this cycle lies in changing your explanatory style, the specific way you talk to yourself about failure in your mental journal.
Helpless individuals view bad events as permanent, personal, and pervasive. Optimists, however, view setbacks as completely temporary, localized, and caused by external factors. To shatter the invisible cage, you have to actively force your system to experience small, undeniable victories. You break down the giant, terrifying wall into tiny, manageable pieces that you can easily smash with a hammer. By achieving tiny goals, you slowly prove to your cynical brain that your actions do have real consequences. Psychologists call this building self-efficacy, the deep, foundational belief in your own ability to succeed and grow. It is like carefully watering a tiny sprout every day, slowly nurturing your sense of agency back to life. You begin to realize that while you cannot control the weather, you can absolutely control the watering can. As you stack these small wins over time, the old dark neural pathways of helplessness begin to wither away and disappear entirely. You light up a brand new internal torch of confidence, stepping over the small barriers that used to keep you completely paralyzed. Your mind finally realizes that the past does not equal the future. You are not powerless. You are simply running an old, outdated piece of psychological software that is begging for an update. Recognize the glitch, celebrate your small victories, change your internal narrative, and finally, unlearn your helplessness. Update complete? Now go out there and break free.